brace yourself. It's extremely dangerous.
Hello? Hello? What's up, everyone? Good morning. Good morning. It's Tuesday morning. The coffee is still hitting. Oh, yeah. That is not there. There we go. Yeah, it's early in the morning. 6:40 here. Getting the coffee on board. Coffee on board. Woo. So yeah, been at the ocean all weekend and doing schoolwork from the ocean and hanging out with the family. Finally caught up with schoolwork. That was nice. Non-stop school and work. Trying to get caught up, but it's caught up. I can't fall behind. Need to import some of these photos from the ocean to see. I was trying to mess around and mess with different techniques and styles and all that crap. Deselect all. These imported. Import. Okay, cool. Let it import. I tried doing it on my laptop. My laptop is so old and ancient that it was taking forever. And old but ancient, I mean like 2015. It wasn't that old, but still. Do I have like any sound of music? To get into my latest class. This is all stuff that my other class is grading me on. I remember getting B's and stuff. No wonder I've been getting a B, because she's grading me on the fact that I know some of the stuff already, even though I'm concurrently taking the class. Huh. That would explain. Talking about histograms and shit, I'm like, I don't know what the fuck a histogram is. It's like a hysterectomy. But apparently, I'm going to learn it, even though fault of being concurrently enrolled in a class that I should have. So let's see. That makes sense. Ooh. So how's everyone doing this morning? Who's on here? Who do I got? I got Business Daddy. Ooh. So Alto. And the same bots that are in there all the time. Cool. Alright, IT broadcast job offer scam alert. Dear Academy community. This is where a rising scammers and fake job offers out live. Many of these scammers impersonate real human resources employees. Don't care. Go through that. Exposure bracket. So homework for this week is instructions for this assignment. Shoot a series of 3 brackets of a subject. I don't even know what the fuck that is yet until I guess I read the reading. For the assignment, shoot a series of 3 brackets Bracket your exposure so that you start with your light meter indicates is ideal. Then adjust your aperture shutter speed. One hole stop less and one hole stop more of exposure. Make sure there is a full stop difference in your calculation, so that the exposure difference in your bracket is more pronounced. Avoid camera shake to use a tripod. In your post, and list the settings you use. Aperture, shutter speed, as I explain which image shows the best exposure. For all shooting assignments,
bracketing. Shoot a series of 3 brackets of a subject. So you're going to shoot 3 images of the same scene. Bracket your exposure so that you start with what your light meter indicates is ideal. The reflected meter in your camera, you can use that as a guide. Maybe it helps you in this case. Then adjust either your aperture or your shutter speed, either one you can choose, to 1 whole stop less, and then of course 1 whole stop more. This is the type of assignment that is best to just look at some examples. So let's just jump to the next slide. And you'll see that there is an image. Those look like they're shells or they're beads of some sort. So the image on the left is the lightest one. Then it gets a little bit darker, and then it gets a little bit darker. What is the difference between these 3 images? They're all 1 stop difference. How do we know? Visually we know, or we have a sense. But then look at the exposures. So here we go. On the left, it's f16 at 1/4 of a second. And then this student, she darkened it down 1 stop, f16 at 1/8 of a second. And then she went to f16 at 1/15 of a second. So very straightforward, even though it might not seem like it or sound like it, it ultimately is. And that it's just the same scene. She's kept her f number, her f stop the same at f16, and she chose to move her shutter speeds 1 stop incremental changes. So her normal, her quote unquote correct exposure is in the middle. The one on the left is what we call +1 because it's lighter by 1 stop. And the one on the right we call -1, which means -1 stop. Let's look at another example. Flowers, same thing. In this case, again, the f8 is constant. So f8 at 1/60th of a second, and then stopping down 1 stop, f8 at 1/125th of a second, and then f8 at 1/250th of a second. And the other thing, you guys, in addition to just practicing changing our shutter speeds and our apertures, is that really one of the big goals for this assignment is to visually get used to what a 1-stop change looks like. So when we're having critique, when you're talking with your instructors and your instructors say, hey, that looks like it's -1 stop, that won't be a foreign concept to you. You'll be like, oh yeah, I know what that looks like because we looked at a whole bunch of bracketing exposures and changes in a different assignment. So let's look at the next example of 3. This is the wood fence. Now in this case, this student, Brandon, is changing the f-stop. So this is f11 at 1/4, and then stopping down to f16 at 1/4, and then f22 at 1/4. So only the aperture in this case changes, and that's what a 1-stop change looks like. And then the bananas, the same thing. Okay, rounding this up, student outcome. Recognize how apertures change exposure. Illustrate how apertures affect depth of field. Yep. Identify how digital lenses work. Sure. Compare full frame and crop. Probably. Predict how focal length will affect images. Yes. Demonstrate equivalent exposure. In this case, demonstrate what a 1-stop change looks like when we bracket exposures. And you guys might have questions about a high dynamic range and merging images together, dynamic range, shadow detail, all kinds of things related to this conversation. But to keep it straightforward, we're shooting 3 images. We're shooting a normal, a -1, and a +1. Give it a try, have fun with it. And like the other assignment this week, we're not going to let you get past this without doing it correctly. So if you're starting to shoot and you're like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing, just shoot it, do the best you can. Your instructor will be checking your images to make sure that your shutter speeds and your apertures are correct. And then if they're not, you'll get to shoot it again. So again, it's a technical assignment, but it's one of those things where you need to actually physically do it to understand it. Exposure is a big deal. It's one of the key ingredients of this class in terms of a learning outcome. So have fun with it and ask questions when they come up.
Fair enough. Easy, easy. Okay. So I gotta pick a 3. Tree. Alright, so that is that. I gotta shoot a series of 3 brackets of a subject. Shoot a series of 3 brackets of a subject. Bracket your exposure, so just one subject then. Okay. Make sure there's a full stop. Okay. Of course, this is this. Oh, wow, they actually got followed your directions this time, huh? Jesus, this person was ridiculous on their submissions before. No. Alright. She gave me a B minus on this. What did she say about it? Blurry, is that what it was? You can see the kind of first one. Though the composition is a bit busy, we can see that you use positive negative space, asymmetry, as well as shape to create the image. Polarized UV. I don't know anything about no UV. But yeah, okay. She ain't wrong, I just didn't know anything about that. Alright, let's take a look at the other. Don't get distracted, Ray. Don't get distracted, Ray. Getting distracted. Don't get distracted. Okay, everybody around here. Somebody. Alright. We're still getting distracted. Holiday weekend, blah blah blah. Ooh, check out the graphics on his stream. This game.
Karja, but she's one of the good ones.
If she's a friend of yours, she must be.
His New World?
On hold. On hold until Talana arrives at the Ostrom camp. Okay? Thirst for the hunt. Draka seeks to obtain machine hearts so that his village can trade for water with the clan's capital. Without the help of a seasoned machine hunter, his people will die of thirst. I have so many skill points. Oh my god.
Alright, back to school, back to school. Let's look at outline. Let's see what else I've got to do. I'm only on module 3, and I've got all of this to go by the end of our Paris trip. So, hey Google, how many days until May 11th?
May 11th, 2022 is in 78 days.
78 days until My Paris trip. Woo! But I gotta get passports done for Walter now. That's in a couple days. Alright, let's get ready to rumble. Current topics. Boom, 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 boom. 2-1 and 3-1. Power Equivalent Exposure Series 2. Alright, where are the... Did he lock these other threads? Nice, nice. I'm glad he locked it. Makes it a little bit easier to read through it. Okay. Perfect. Alright, Module 3. We did the bracketing. Let's look at Exposure Series. For this series, you will shoot a scene. Scene must be different than the one you shot for Series 1. Okay? Set up a scene in which several objects recede in space in 6-inch increments. Shoot 4 images of the scene without adjusting composition or frame. Keep your ISO the same for all 4 images. Change your aperture and shutter speed setting 1 full stop so that you have a vary your depth of field but keep the same exposure. We recommend you use a focal length greater than 55. Okay. Full stop difference in your calculations such that the depth of field is pronounced. It's more pronounced. Avoid camera shake, use a tripod. Okay. For all your shooting assignments in this course, the following is required. Shooting manual mode, do not adjust, do not crop. Okay. Let's watch the video. Make sure. The examples definitely help to be able to see what
Equivalent exposure. Let's take a close look at this. Set up a scene in which several objects recede in space in 6-inch increments, meaning moving farther away from you by 6 to 12 inches, something like that. No. Shoot 4 images of the scene without adjusting the composition or frame. In other words, don't change the objects. This is a very technical exercise. Change your aperture and shutter speed settings 1 full stop, such that you vary your depth of field but keep the same exposure. That might not sound clear to a lot of you guys because you're thinking, well, if you change your aperture and shutter speed, how do you have the same exposure? The assignment is called equivalent exposure, and we're going to practice this so you guys can start to see and understand the relationship between shutter speeds and apertures and ultimately proper exposure. If you decrease your shutter speed, you have to make a reciprocal change to your aperture. That probably sounds confusing, but that's what we're going to be practicing, and we'll flush it out this week. In my mind, this is one of the more important assignments of our whole semester, really nailing this. And by the way, you guys will nail this because you won't be able to get past this assignment without passing it. In other words, you have to do it correctly. So in the past, there's been times where students will shoot this 2, 3, 4, 5 times, whatever it is. But the key element here is making sure you guys understand this. It is recommended that you use a focal length greater than 55 millimeters. So, 35 millimeter to 75, or 35 to 55, somewhere in there is fine. Make sure there is full stop differences in your calculations. We'll talk about that, such that the depth of field difference in your equivalence is more pronounced. Avoid camera shake. Use a tripod, of course. That'll make your life a lot nicer. Most students in the fall semesters do this indoors because it starts to get cold. In the spring semester, it's kind of 50-50. So is there an advantage or disadvantage? I don't know. I think indoors you can control it if you have the space. Outdoors, you're dealing with maybe the sun being shaded by clouds or weather or wind or something like that. So either or is fine. Let's look at some example images from past students and past semesters. So in this first one it looks like, I don't know if those are shells or they're marbles or whatever they are. F8 at 1/250th of a second. Okay, so F8 at 1/250th of a second. That's image number 1. Image number 2, we opened up the aperture 1 stop to f5.6. And if you do that, then you have to do the reciprocal, the same change or a similar change to the shutter speed by changing it to 1/500th of a second. So you let more light in with f5.6, but then you reduced the speed by going to 1/500th of a second. And then again, f5.6 to f4, you opened it up wider, allowing more light in. So now you have to cut it down on shutter speed, 1/1000th of a second. Same thing. Here we go. f2.8, that's 1 full stop from f4. And then look at the relationship. It was 1/1000th of a second. Now it's 1/2000th of a second. Here's the thing, you guys. All those f numbers, f stops, and shutter speeds are all different, but they're all the same exposure. So look at step back and look at these 4 images in this example. They're all the same exposure, but using different shutter speeds and apertures. So it's a relationship between shutter speed and aperture, and that's the point of the assignment. So again, if you're still like, I don't know, we're just gonna shoot. We're gonna practice. We're gonna mess with it, and you will get it right. It just might take a couple of times. Not to worry. This is a really good assignment for you guys to understand shutter speeds and apertures. Oh, and one other key thing: don't mess with your ISO. That's just another variable. It's important, but just set your ISO to 100 or 200 or 400 and just leave it alone. Because if we add that third variable, I don't know that that really increases our understanding of this assignment. I think it confuses people, but not for good reasons. So let's just minimize that variable and let's just focus on shutter speeds and apertures and this relationship between one and the other, right? Okay, next example, you'll see that this is a vertical. Actually, the F number and the shutter speed are a little bit harder to read on this one. But it's the same idea. And then there's another one with the little teddy bears. This is a good example of the depth of field. So in the description, it talks about having your subjects 6 inches or farther apart with a focal length of around 50 or 55 millimeter. This is why. Because you can start to, even though we're focusing on exposure and equivalent exposure and the relationship from shutter speeds, apertures, that's all true. But there's another factor here, which is, what does f16 look like in terms of depth of field compared to f5.6? So if you allow yourself, if you move your objects, give them some space, 6 inches to 12 inches apart, you'll start to see more of the depth of field, the shallowness, or the length of it. And that's a really good thing to understand as well. So that's kind of a secondary element to this assignment. Okay, and then the next slide is, again, similar things, f16, 1 second. Okay, then, real quick, this assignment is designed to teach you fundamental photographic skills. It is essential. Okay, that's all great. Let's look at the student outcomes real quick. Recognize how apertures change exposures. Yeah, we want to know that. Illustrate how aperture affects depth of field. We just talked about that. Identify how digital lenses work, including how they create depth of field. Sure. Compare full frame and crop sensors. Yeah, that's a conversation that's in the mix for sure. Predict how focal length will affect images. Yes. Demonstrate equivalent exposure. That's the one I want to underscore. Demonstrate equivalent exposure. This relationship between shutter speed and aperture. And then from this conversation, you guys, other things crop up, like bracketing and +1, -1. Now remember, we're looking for full stop changes. So F4 to F5.6, F5.6 to F8, F8 to F11, F11 to F16, F16 to 22. Those are one full stop as an example. So shoot this. Again, don't worry about doing it wrong, because your instructor will be checking all of your shutter speeds and apertures, and then if there is something that's incorrect, you'll be asked to do it again until you get it right. So this is a very cool assignment that hopefully will give you guys some fundamentals in this relationship of equivalent exposure.
All right. It's about that time, guys. Almost time for that morning poop. My coffee's hitting deep. Let's see what his example. Okay.
Okay, everybody, let's make an intro audio file here to our 5.2 equivalent exposure. This is the series 2 for this week. And shooting a different scene is a good advice, different from series 1, so you don't have all these test images and get really confused. That happens. So shoot something totally different, set it up in your garage or your kitchen or your backyard or whatever. And the goal here is we're going to shoot a series of 4 images. Shoot 4 images of the scene without adjusting the composition. So this is a test, right? You're going to change your aperture and shutter speed settings in one full stop. But if you change your shutter speed, then you're going to have to change your aperture. So it's called equivalent exposure. So for example, if you've got the right exposure, let me grab an example of 4 images that were shot by Angelina in a previous semester.
I'll be right back. Poop's not waiting.
raspberries taste like snozberries.
Alright, I'm back for a little bit. And I got a new follow, Boneless Big Heart. Thank you for the follow. Yeah, I'm back. Sorry. I gotta head out here in about 10-15 minutes anyways, though. Get the kids ready for school. My import is done for Lightroom. Sweet. Now I can review some of my images. Alright, let's go to view. Okay. I was messing. Ooh. Maybe it is there, huh? So it does show up, kinda. Specs on the lens. Just because I got dust and dirt on my lens and I was trying to get it off here. I think I was able to move it a little bit. You can see it on the top right. No! That means my lens is... How to clean the 800 lens.
Today we're going to be cleaning the sensor of Nikon D800E using visible dust product. We're going to inspect using sensor loop or quasar. Going to be using 7X. So once we have located the dust, we have a choice of using dry cleaning using Z-Ion or Arctic Butterfly to remove the dust, but also we have a choice of using wet cleaning. We recommend using orange swabs and VDust Plus for Nikon D100 800E. So make sure there is nothing on the sensor. In this case, you lift the camera, you face it down, and you blow on the sensor, so to remove any particles on the sensor prior to wet cleaning. Then we use the orange swab. We're using VDust Plus, which is a blue cap bottles. We're going to be applying 3 drops on the edge, or maybe more, the chamber area with the swab. Then we gently rotate 90 degrees. Then we swab it once and we take it out. If you want to go again, we go in the same direction. If you want to throw away your swab before discarding your swab, you can use the orange swab to clean the edges of the which connects your lenses to your frame. So you examine your sensor. If there's any particles or anything, you can use Arctic Butterfly. If there is any done.
Hi, my name's Peter Brogden, and in this video we're going to do a little talk about how to easily clean the sensor in a crop sensor Nikon digital SLR. Now, before we dig into the details, let's just discuss.
Everybody gets dust on their sensor. It shows up as little spots in clear areas of your picture. Like if you take a picture of the sky, you might see a little blob that wasn't really there. I'm going to show you how to clean your sensor. I've tried several different techniques, close as possible. Just spin the lens until you get to the minimum focusing distance. I'm going to get so close to something that it's just completely out of focus. And as I look around the screen, I will see some spots as I move. So there are spots in the screen that aren't moving. Those are dust spots on the sensor. You could also just take a picture of a white wall. I'd like to just get close enough that the wall would be out of focus, and then any spots that you see are obvious. You can usually see the dust with your naked eye though. Take your lens off. If you have an SLR, you'll have to put your camera into cleaning mode. That's buried in the menu somewhere. It's usually like the very last menu item. Put it into cleaning mode and that will flip the mirror up. If your camera has an auto cleaning option, that's a good place to start. But if that doesn't fix it, then choose clean manually to move the mirror out of the way to give you access to the sensor. Again, on a mirrorless camera, this is not necessary. There is no mirror to move out of the way. Make sure you turn the camera off. Now, as I'm looking at that, I can actually see some dust flecks on my sensor, so that's definitely what's causing the flecks that I'm seeing in the photos. Okay, so let's dig into our kit here. I'm using a kit from BSGO. It's a 2-part kit. It has swabs and then some cleaning fluid. I know, it's pretty scary to be putting fluid around your camera. I've done this before. You don't have to do it. If you're afraid, if you're gonna hold me responsible for this, send this camera back, pay your manufacturer 50 or $100 and they'll clean your sensor for you. I always do this myself, and in fact, I travel with this stuff because inevitably when I'm out traveling, I end up getting some dust on my sensor. So this 2-part kit, the swab and the cleaning, I'm gonna tear this open to pull my swab out.
Exposures. Messing with this. Those are all blurry. It's horrible. Trying to do it from far. Yeah, right. I agree. So I was just messing with the camera back from far away with the zoomed in. You can see how my blurriness is. Just trying to mess with the dust on there. Down here I got a little bit closer at least. But with the sun in your face, it was hard to see if it was focused around. Right? Because the goal of the class 2 is trying to not use an automatic focus, but also to just manually do everything. Tell here, I was just messing around, none of my schoolwork stuff. Just trying to learn, messing with the settings, but it's all blurry. Got to get better at the focusing and be able to balance it all. I was trying to, from this angle, trying to get more of a backlit with the sun to make it more of a shadow look. But with all, it was super windy and sand flying around. I was like, okay, I need to get out of here. So I'm gonna ruin the camera more than it already is. See all these added dust. And then it didn't help that I'm sitting there. So I can show you in the metadata. Trying to mess with it. Shutter speed, doing 1/26 or 1/20th of a second on this photo. Just kind of going back and forth trying to with the meter. So this particular one was 120, 130. That one was 130. But see, it got to 130, and that's where I need like a tripod. If I would have brought my tripod, it would have been a lot better. But I didn't have my tripod. I was back at the cabin. This one's 1/60th. And I gotta get in the habit of using the tripod more. So 1/80th on here. Let's see. Let's go back this way. Oh. 1/320th of a second right here. So you can see at least it's a little bit clearer there. Not as good, but I mean I didn't learn until my teacher critiqued one of my other photos that with the focal lens, and the best part of which I haven't been doing, which I'm going to start doing now, is the focal length or the lens. If I'm shooting like right now, my lens setting was at 300 millimeters, zoomed all the way in 300. That I need to do at least a shutter speed of 1/300th to match that. So, but instead I had about 1/320th, so slightly there. Excuse me on that. So this one zoomed in at 300th, but I did 1/200th of a second. So then that's where the camera shake and the tripod. But she was telling me to match my shutter speed with my focal length. So if I shoot at 200, I need to do at least 1/200th for shutter speed along those lines. Obviously, because there's no so this being an exposure at 1/200th, I should have shot that 200 if I was doing that. But So some kind of cool tips and tricks that I didn't know. But so that class, she expected me to know that for my other assignment. I was like, but I'm concurrently enrolled in a different, or the beginner's course as well, which is Photo 108, and a lot of the stuff I'm learning this week, next week. So I'm kind of like going at it concurrently. So I'm like, I don't know yet, but I'm learning it as I go at the same time. So I was testing this cup here because if I got that stuff, I got sand and dust on my. You can see on my lens on the inside there because I made this stupid mistake of trying to cover it up by the wind. But I was in the back of my truck and changed lenses out. I should have stayed in the car and changed my lens, but I was out there, and as soon as I opened that up and put the new lens on, I knew I had messed up. So I was just taking pictures to see the spots on my lens, as you can see in the sky. So I was like, okay, let's get in here, see if I can clean it. So I was able to move from here. So I took a photo with some of the spots that I had that I was seeing through my lens. I was like, okay, let me take a photo and see if it's on the lens or if it'll print out fine, like on my actual. So I didn't see anything. So I had a big blob that was on the camera or on the coffee cup that is not showing up here. So I was like, oh, okay, so maybe it was just through the actual viewfinder, not the what's gonna print out with the photo. But you can see, so like most of it is not there. I'm like, okay, cool. And I tried cleaning it in there, but then there's some spots, like right here in this photo, top right in the sky, a little blob in the top left in the sky. So I think that's what I got currently going on right now. But now that I'm back home, out of the dust and sand, I'm gonna open it up and try to see about cleaning it here before I start shooting some more. I had some tissue paper that was like for camera lenses and stuff like that. I'm like, hopefully I didn't scratch anything. I'm trying to, with the sensor, just trying to use that to get some of that smudges off. But but then again, yeah, if it was sand, it's probably gonna drag that sand against the image sensor, which it didn't seem. It seems like it's okay, but whew. We'll see if we notice it. Get that specs out. I guess that might come into play when if I take some photos and resolutions of landscapes or Paris or anything like that, and then end up trying to print anything out. Do definitely need to get into my tripod a lot more, just for practicing my depth of field on that photo. Definitely, I need to get into the tripods. But I believe I'll probably go out and do some more photo practicing, shooting some stuff, mess with exposure. My new this week's assignment is I got to pick an object. It's gonna messing with the different f-stops, +1, -1 on the brackets. Yes, baby. Oh, look at your hair. It looks so pretty with the curling. You need me to help? Here, come here. You need me to put toothpaste on you? Okay. Is Tito awake?
No.
No? Okay.
I'm the only one who's awake.
You're the only one that's awake? Okay.
Yeah.
Go potty. Make sure you go potty, okay? Alright. I love you. What's that, baby? Okay. I gotta go get them ready for school. Alright, well, thanks for following. I'll probably be live a little bit later today, get some more stuff. I gotta do some schoolwork. But first, I gotta get the kids ready for school. Get the kids ready for school, get them to the bus stop, come back. I have an appointment. I got a new blackstone I gotta put together. Excited about that, and then I'll be doing some more schoolwork, some photography stuff, and I'll be streaming again while I do the schoolwork. But thanks for following. Stop by again. Appreciate it. This is just more of a short session this morning, about an hour-ish session. And then we'll do a little bit longer here, a little bit later today. Alright, thanks for following. Bye.